The morning air was colder than Malik expected. Back in Alabama, mornings were warm by March, the sun already peeking through the clouds. But here in Ohio, the wind still had teeth. It cut through his hoodie and made his fingers stiff as he clutched the strap of his backpack. He stood on the corner of Maple and 7th, waiting for bus near 42. It was the second week since the move. New state, new school, new streets. Nothing felt familiar. The buildings were taller. People walked faster. Even the air smelled different, like exhaust and wet concrete. His mom had already left for work. She did the night shift at the hospital and barely got home in time to sleep a few hours before Malik left. Still, she made sure to check his school ID before collapsing onto the couch. "You got your pass?" she had asked, even with one eye closed. "Yes, ma'am," he'd answered, holding it up like a badge. She nodded, satisfied. "Be respectful. Speak clearly. Don't give anyone a reason." He didn't ask her what she meant. He already knew. The bus pulled up with a hiss of brakes. The door creaked open, and Malik stepped forward. The driver was a white man in his 60s. His name tag said Dave. He looked Malik up and down, then frowned. "You got a pass, kid?" he asked, though he made no move to take it. "Yes, sir," Malik said, holding it out. Dave glanced at it for half a second. "You sure this is the right bus? This one goes to Jefferson." "I go to Jefferson." A long pause. Then the driver grunted, turned his head, and waved him in without a word. Malik climbed aboard and walked past rows of seats, most of them empty. A middle-aged woman pulled her purse closer as he passed. A man in a business suit looked him over and then turned away. No one said anything, but their silence said enough. He sat near the back and stared out the window. The bus rolled forward, and buildings slid by. Liquor stores, gas stations, tired houses with peeling paint. Then came the nicer part of town. Bakeries with French names, rows of dog walkers, and perfect little front yards. Jefferson Middle sat right at the edge of that divide. Big brick walls, clean windows, an electronic sign out front that read, "Welcome to Jefferson, where excellence begins." Malik stepped off the bus and looked up at the school. It didn't feel like excellence. It felt like a test. Inside, the hallways were wide and quiet. The lockers were taller than he was used to. Every classroom had a smartboard. There were posters everywhere. Kindness counts. Diversity makes us stronger. Be the change. He walked past them all without a word. His homeroom teacher, Mrs. Lawson, smiled as he entered. "Malik Johnson, right? We're happy to have you." Her voice was warm, but her eyes flicked toward the back row. There was always room in the back. He sat through math, then science, then English. No one spoke to him beyond what was necessary. At lunch, he found a seat by the window and ate slowly, watching kids laugh and shout on the basketball court outside. No one invited him to join. By the time the final bell rang, he was exhausted. Not from schoolwork, but from pretending not to notice, pretending not to care. He waited at the same bus stop in the afternoon. Dave, the driver, didn't say a word when he got on, just gave him the same look. Malik sat down and stared out the window again. When he got home, the apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and his mom's lavender oil. She was on the couch, awake now, a mug of tea in her hands. How was it? She asked. He thought for a second. It was fine. She nodded, though she didn't believe it. She never pressed. Instead, she smiled and said, Dinner's in the fridge. Chicken and rice. He opened the fridge and took out the plate. As he heated it up, he heard the faint voice of the news playing on the radio in the corner. Something about an election. Something about protests. Malik didn't listen. He sat down, ate in silence, and wondered how many days it would take before this place felt like his. The next day started the same. Cold air, quiet street, same bus, same look from Dave. But something was different. Malik had woken up with a knot in his stomach. It wasn't nerves anymore. It was something deeper, tighter. He didn't have words for it yet, but he could feel it. Jefferson Middle looked bright and clean again when he walked in, but he already knew not to trust shiny floors. In first period, the teacher handed out a science worksheet. Malik finished his in 15 minutes, double-checking every answer. He had always liked science. Back in Alabama, he was one of the top students in his class. His old teacher even called him a future engineer. But when he brought the paper up, the teacher didn't even look at it. Are you done already? She asked, surprised. Yes, ma'am. She took the paper and glanced at it. Let's make sure you didn't rush. Malik nodded, walked back to his desk, and sat down quietly. A few students turned around to look at him. One of them leaned over to his friend and whispered, Guess it's easier when you cheat. Malik froze. He didn't turn around. He just stared at his desk, jaw tight. Lunchtime didn't help. The cafeteria was packed and noisy. Kids moved in groups like schools of fish, sliding into the same tables, same jokes, same places. Malik stood for a second with his tray in hand, trying not to look lost. Hey, over here. He turned. A girl waved at him from a smaller table near the corner. She had light brown skin, long dark hair, pulled into a braid, and a silver ring on her finger that sparkled under the light. Her name tag said, Sophia. You can sit if you want, she said. He sat across from her, surprised. I've seen you around, she said between bites. You're new. Yeah. Malik, right? He nodded. I'm Sophia. Moved here last year. From New Mexico. Cool. She took a sip from her water bottle. They make you feel like an alien yet? He blinked. What? You'll see. They ate in silence for a moment. It was a comfortable silence. She didn't seem to expect him to talk, which made him want to. You like it here? He asked. She shrugged. It's okay. Some teachers are all right. Some kids, not so much. Malik looked around. Nobody was paying attention to them. Yeah, he said. I noticed. She smiled. You're not crazy. It's real. That one sentence hit harder than he expected. It's real. No one had said it out loud. Not his teachers, not the guidance counselor, not his mom. Everyone acted like what was happening was just a phase, a misunderstanding, a quiet space he hadn't learned to fill. But Sophia said it like it was a fact, like gravity. Later that day in history class, Malik raised his hand. They were talking about the Constitution, and the teacher, Mr. Reynolds, asked the class, "What does justice for all mean?" Hands shot up. Kids gave answers like, fairness, and equality. Then Malik raised his hand. Yes, Malik? He cleared his throat. Does that include when slavery was legal, or when black people couldn't vote? The room went still. Mr. Reynolds shifted in place. Well, that was a different time. We're focusing on the ideals of the Constitution today. But isn't it important to talk about what those words meant in practice? Malik asked. The teacher gave a tight smile. Let's not get off topic. We'll get to civil rights later in the semester. Malik nodded slowly. He knew what that meant. Later usually meant never. After class, two boys caught up to him in the hallway. Why do you always have to make everything about race? One of them asked. Malik stopped. I was just asking a question. The second boy smirked. Yeah, well, maybe leave the heavy stuff for college. They walked off, laughing. Malik turned the corner and leaned against the locker, letting out a slow breath. Then he saw Sophia walking past. You okay? She asked. I'm fine. He lied. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. People here don't like being reminded that things aren't perfect. I noticed. She smiled, then started walking again. Come on. You're not done surviving the day yet. That evening, at home, Malik sat at the table with his science book open. But he wasn't reading. His mind kept going back to the question he'd asked, the looks he got, and how fast the teacher shut him down. His mom walked in, tired from another long shift. She dropped her bag by the door and kissed the top of his head. You hungry? She asked. Not really. She sat across from him. Something happened? He hesitated. Just school stuff. Want to talk about it? He shook his head. She reached over and squeezed his hand. You don't have to say anything now. But you're not alone, baby. You hear me? I hear you. She smiled, stood, and went to make tea. As the kettle boiled, Malik opened his laptop and typed into the search bar. Civil rights history for middle school. The first result was a name he knew. Rosa Parks. He clicked. He read. And for the first time in weeks, something inside him felt steady. Friday night was quiet in the apartment. Malik's mom had left for her shift an hour ago, and the only sound was the ticking of the wall clock and the hum of the fridge. Malik sat on the floor, laptop balanced on his knees, video call open. Can you see me, Papa? He asked, adjusting the screen. His grandfather's face appeared, pixelated and a bit dark, but still familiar. Broad nose, kind eyes, gray stubble on his chin. I can see you just fine, son, Papa said. Though you look tired. Malik smiled. It's been a long week. I heard. Your mama told me school's been tricky. Malik looked down. It's weird. People don't say stuff to your face. Not usually. But they look at you like they already made a decision about you. Papa nodded slowly. That sounds familiar. Malik paused. When you were my age, was it like this? His grandfather gave a long breath before answering. It was different, but the same. He leaned back in his chair. I grew up in Selma, Alabama. Your great-grandfather used to say, keep your head down. Don't give white folks a reason. He shook his head. Back then, we had separate schools, separate water fountains. Even had to step off the sidewalk if a white man was walking your way. Malik's eyes widened. Seriously? Dead serious. I was 12 when they arrested my neighbor for trying to vote. Arrested? For voting? For trying to. They had these things called literacy tests. Questions designed so you couldn't pass, even if you had a PhD. Malik blinked. That's insane. Papa nodded. I marched in 65. Bloody Sunday. We walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, peaceful as could be. But the police came with batons, tear gas. I still remember the sting in my eyes, the shouting, the fear. Malik leaned closer. You were there? I was. Didn't you want to fight back? I did. But they told us, the world's watching. Show them who we are with peace, not fists. It was hard, but it worked. Malik was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, There's this girl at school, Sophia. She's the only one who treats me like I belong. The rest, he shook his head. It's like I'm invisible, or worse. Papa nodded again. This fight, Malik, it didn't end with us. You carry it now, but you don't carry it alone. Malik swallowed. Sometimes it feels like I do. You don't. And don't let anyone make you shrink. You come from people who stood tall when everything tried to break them. The words sank into Malik's chest like warm coal. Quiet, but burning. Thanks, Papa. His grandfather smiled. Anytime, son. And remember, history doesn't just live in books, it lives in you. After the call, Malik pulled out a worn notebook and flipped to a blank page. He started writing down names. Rosa Parks, John Lewis, Bayard Rustin, then underlined them. He turned to a new page and wrote one more word at the top. Me. The next morning, Malik woke up early. The sky outside was still gray, the world not quite awake yet. He got dressed, made toast, and sat at the kitchen table with a library book he'd checked out the day before. March by John Lewis. He read in silence, sipping orange juice, heart beating faster with every page. It was the first time he saw himself, not just as someone trying to survive school, but as someone connected to something bigger. A story that started long before him. A fight that still had room for his voice. He closed the book and looked out the window. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, glowing in the early light. Malik pressed his hand against the glass and whispered, I'm not backing down. By the third week, Malik had developed a rhythm. Wake up early, catch the bus, stay quiet, stay sharp, get home, repeat. He kept his head down like his mom said, like Papa once did, but the knot in his chest was still there, tightening every time someone stared too long or whispered too soft. Monday started like the others. A cold wind, a half nod from Dave the bus driver, and the usual quiet walk to homeroom. But that day, something was different. He opened his locker and froze. Inside, someone had taped a crude drawing to the back wall, a stick figure, hanging from a tree. The figure had MJ written across the chest. Malik's breath caught in his throat. His backpack slid from his hand. For a long moment, he just stared at it. The paper flapped gently from the cold draft down the hall. Then he ripped it down, crushed it in his fist, and shoved it deep into his hoodie pocket. His heartbeat thudded in his ears, his fingers shaking. From the corner of his eye, he saw two boys watching from across the hall. One of them, the same one who had made the cheating comment last week, was laughing. Malik turned and walked away without a word. In English class, he couldn't focus. The teacher was talking about metaphors, but all Malik could hear was that paper crumpling in his pocket. His fingers brushed it every few minutes, as if to make sure it was still real, still proof. He thought about telling someone. Mrs. Lawson, maybe, or the principal. But he had already seen how they responded. Smiles, nods, promises to look into it. He needed more than that. At lunch, Sophia noticed something was off. "You good?" she asked, picking at her salad. Malik hesitated. Then slowly he reached into his hoodie, pulled out the paper, and slid it across the table. Sophia's face changed instantly. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Who did this?" she whispered. "I don't know," he said, "but I have a guess." She looked around the room, scanning faces. "You have to report it." "They won't do anything." "You don't know that?" "I do." Sophia leaned forward. "Then we make them listen." Malik stared at her. "Oh, how?" She gave a tight smile. "Let me show you something after school." That afternoon, they met in the library. Sophia pulled out her phone and opened a folder labeled Receipts. Inside were photos, screenshots, even recordings. "You keep track of stuff?" Malik asked. "Yeah. Started last year when someone wrote, 'Go back to Mexico' on my locker. Principal called it a prank. I called it proof." Malik looked at her in a new way, like she wasn't just kind, but brave. Dangerous. In the best sense of the word. "We can document everything," she said. "Take photos. Write it down. Use their own rules against them. And if they still ignore it?" She shrugged. "Then we don't go quiet." Malik felt the coal in his chest glow a little brighter. He reached for his backpack and pulled out the crumpled paper again. He smoothed it flat and placed it on the table. "Let's start with this," he said. The next morning, they went to the principal's office together. Malik explained what happened. Sophia backed him up. She even had a blurry photo she snapped from the hallway, showing the two boys laughing. Principal Jensen listened, with his arms crossed. He was a tall man with a deep voice, and a framed college football jersey behind him. "This is serious," he said finally. "But we don't want to jump to conclusions." Malik stared at him. "You think I made this up?" No, of course not. But we have to follow process. I'll speak to the students involved and notify the parents. In the meantime, we'll ask the janitor to check your locker for damage." Malik nodded, lips tight. Back in the hallway, Sophia muttered, "Process my ass." That day at lunch, Malik walked a little taller, not because things were better, but because he wasn't alone. He had spoken up. He had been heard, if only slightly. Later, when he opened his locker, he found a note. This one was different. It read, "We don't want you here. Go back to where you came from. No name, no drawing, just those words." He stared at it for a long time, then folded it slowly and placed it into a folder Sophia had labeled Incidents. Before he closed the locker, he looked at his reflection in the small magnetic mirror on the inside of the door. "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. The next week moved like thunder. Whispers started floating through the halls. "Did you hear what happened to Malik? They found a drawing in his locker. The principal's keeping it quiet." But Malik wasn't interested in whispers anymore. He wanted voices. Real ones. It was Sophia's idea. "The school paper," she said at lunch, her eyes lit with purpose. "It runs every 2 weeks. We can write something." Malik frowned. "They're not gonna publish that." "Not if we ask. But what if we submit it as an opinion piece? They print those." Malik hesitated, chewing slowly. "Won't it make things worse?" Sophia nodded. "Probably, but silence already is worse." That night, Malik sat at his desk and stared at a blank Google Doc for nearly 30 minutes. Then he started to write. He wrote about the drawing, the stares, the whispers, the feeling of being treated like a stranger in his own country. He wrote about history and Papa's stories and what it felt like to open a locker and find hatred inside. When he was done, the page was full. His chest felt hollow, but his hands were steady. He sent it to Sophia. She added a paragraph of her own, then another. They titled it, "When Being Different Feels Dangerous." They signed it together, by Malik Johnson and Sophia Reyes, grade 8. The article was published in the Friday edition. By third period, the school was buzzing. Malik noticed it right away. People were looking at him again, but this time it was different. Some nodded. Some smiled. Some stared with tight lips. One teacher gave him a quiet thumbs up as he passed. He sat down in science class, heart pounding. 2 seats over, a boy he barely knew leaned in and whispered, "Took guts to write that, man." By lunchtime, the article had spread to parents. A few teachers were called into a meeting. The principal announced that all acts of discrimination would be taken seriously moving forward. It sounded official, but Malik knew better. The real change wasn't in announcements. It was in people. That afternoon, a girl named Eliana stopped him outside the library. "I read what you wrote," she said. "Last year someone called me a terrorist in gym class. I told the teacher. Nothing happened. I wish I'd said something louder. Like you." Malik nodded. "It's not too late." She blinked. "You mean join you?" He smiled. "Why not?" Within days, more students began speaking out. A quiet group formed. Small at first. Sophia, Malik, Eliana, a boy named Noah, whose parents were from Korea, then 2 others, then 5, then 10. They called themselves Voices. They met after school in the far corner of the library, where the old encyclopedias gathered dust. They took notes, shared stories, made plans. They weren't just angry. They were tired. Tired of pretending it didn't hurt. Tired of the jokes, the looks, the silence. One day during lunch, someone had written, "Go home," across Malik's locker again. But this time, in black permanent marker. This time, he didn't hide it. He called Sophia. She took photos. She posted them on the group's shared Google Drive. Eliana sent it to the school board's community liaison. Noah printed a copy and handed it to the guidance counselor. That afternoon, the principal called Malik in again. "We're taking this seriously now," Principal Jensen said. "We've asked the district for support and begun an internal investigation." Malik stared back. "Now you are." There was something sharp in his voice, something grown, something earned. The principal paused. I know it's been hard, but I admire your maturity through all this. Malik stood up. It's not about maturity, it's about dignity. Then he walked out of the office, head high. That night, Papa called. I read that article, he said. Twice. Malik smiled. You like it? I did more than like it. I felt it. And I saw something in it. What? Myself, 40 years ago, marching across a bridge. Malik sat quietly, holding the phone against his cheek. You're doing good, son, Papa said. Just remember, bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up again and again. The next morning, Malik opened his locker. There was no marker, no drawing, no hate note, just a folded piece of paper. He hesitated, then opened it. Inside was one line. Keep going. We see you. No name, no handwriting he recognized, but it was enough. He tucked the note into his folder, zipped up his backpack, and headed to class. Not invisible, not alone, not anymore. It started with a whisper from the guidance counselor. You know, Ms. Hayworth said, straightening the pins in her hair, there's a school-wide assembly next Friday. The student council usually runs it, but if you and your group have something to say, I can talk to the principal. Malik and Sophia looked at each other. We want it, Sophia said immediately. Malik nodded. Let's do it. That afternoon, voices gathered in the library, as always. Eliana brought snacks. Noah brought a Bluetooth speaker for music while they worked. Malik brought a legal pad covered in ideas and crossed out sentences. Sophia stood at the front of their small circle and asked, What do we want to say? Everything, said Eliana. But how? Noah added. They'll expect us to play nice. Malik raised a hand. We will play nice, but we'll be loud about it. Over the next few days, they wrote their speech together. It started as a list of experiences. Locker graffiti, racial slurs in the hallway, teachers brushing things off as kids being kids, administrators staying quiet, the slow, constant burn of being made to feel less than. Then they added a vision. What the school could be, what it should be, a place where everyone belonged. Without having to prove it, Malik offered to be the main speaker. His voice was steady, but his hands kept sweating. You sure you're ready? Sophia asked him. Nope, he said, but I'm doing it anyway. Friday came fast. The auditorium was packed, rows of metal chairs, restless 8th graders, a few bored teachers sipping coffee from travel mugs. The principal sat near the front, arms folded. The student council went first. They gave announcements about Spirit Week and a reminder not to litter. Then, Miss Hayworth stepped up to the mic. We have something special today, she said, her voice clear and sure. Some of our students want to share something important with all of you. Please, give them your attention. She stepped aside. Malik walked onto the stage, paper in hand, knees shaking. He looked out at the crowd. It was quiet. Everyone was watching. He took a breath and began. My name is Malik Johnson. I'm in 8th grade. I've been a student here since September, and since then, I've been called names. My locker's been vandalized. I've been told to go home, but this is my home. I was born in this city. I ride the same bus. I do the same homework. And yet, some people still look at me like I don't belong here. This isn't just about me. It's about every student who's ever been made to feel other because of their skin, or their name, or their accent. It's not okay, and we're not staying quiet about it. The room was still. Then Sophia stepped up beside him. We started a group. It's called Voices. We're here to listen and to speak. We don't want special treatment. We want equal respect. We want teachers to step up when they hear hate. We want students to stand with each other, not against. If you felt invisible here, we see you. If you felt afraid, we hear you. We're not asking permission to belong. We already do. They finished together. This is our school too. Silence. Then a clap. One student, then another. And then the room filled with applause. Real, loud, lasting. Later that afternoon, Malik sat under the old oak tree behind the school with Sophia and Eliana. Think anything will change? Eliana asked. Malik watched a few students walk by and smile at him. Not a fake smile. Real recognition. Maybe not all at once, he said. But something started. Sophia nodded. They heard us. And we're not done, Malik added. Not even close. That night, when he got home, his mom was waiting in the kitchen. I saw the video, she said, holding her phone. Malik froze. You did? She walked over and hugged him tight. I'm proud of you, baby. Malik buried his face in her shoulder. I was scared, he whispered. She pulled back. That's what made it brave. That weekend, Papa called. They clapped, Malik said. Papa chuckled. Of course they did. I was shaking the whole time. Good. That means it mattered. Later that night, Malik opened his notebook again. On the last page, under the names of those who came before, he wrote, 1 voice started, 10 more followed. Now it's a chorus. And beneath that, just one word. Forward. Change didn't come like a thunderclap. It came like morning light. Slow, quiet, steady. The Monday after the assembly, the halls felt different. Not perfect. Malik still caught a side glance here or there, a smirk, a muttered word. But there were fewer of them, and more nods, more haze, a few thanks. A younger student, 6th grade maybe, ran up to him at lunch and said, I want to join Voices when I'm older. Then sprinted away before Malik could answer. He laughed, heart warm. At the next Voices meeting, 20 students showed up. Some were black, some Latinx, Asian, white. One wore a hijab, another used a cane. All of them had something to say. They didn't all agree on everything, but they agreed on one thing. Silence helps no one. They made posters, planned more pieces for the school paper. They asked the administration for diversity training, and got it, eventually. One teacher asked Malik to speak in her class about student-led activism. I'm not an expert, he said. You're exactly what they need, she replied. Not everyone liked the attention. Some kids still rolled their eyes. One parent complained about pushing agendas. A boy from Malik's math class said, What's the big deal? It was just a drawing. Malik didn't argue. He just looked him in the eye and said, You'd care if it was about you. then walked away. Spring came slowly, and with it, a new kind of peace. Not the kind where everything is easy, but the kind where you finally breathe deeper. One day after school, Malik stayed behind to help Miss Hayworth file library books. They worked in silence for a bit. Then she asked, "How are you really doing?" Malik looked up. "I'm tired," he admitted. "But good tired." She smiled. "That's the best kind." On the bus ride home that afternoon, Malik sat by the window like always. But this time, he didn't have his earbuds in. He just listened. To the hum of the road, to the laughter of kids behind him, to the slow rhythm of regular life. He saw things he hadn't noticed before. Cracks in the pavement. Birds nesting on a lamppost. The way sunlight made the window glow gold. Dave, the bus driver, caught his eye in the mirror and gave him a small salute. Malik smiled back. When the bus stopped on his street, Malik stood up and slung his backpack over one shoulder. He walked past the rows of houses, past the neighbors sitting on porches, waving. When he reached home, Mama was tending her tiny garden out front. "Hey, baby," she said without turning. "How was today?" Malik looked around, then up at the sky, then back at her. "Good," he said. "Really good." That evening, he sat at his desk again and pulled out the notebook, the same one he'd been carrying since September. He flipped past old notes, old quotes, old pain, then started a new page. This time, no anger, no fear, just one sentence. "I found my voice." He tapped his pen against the paper, then wrote another. "And I'm going to help others find theirs too." The next morning, Malik left the house early. The air was cool, the sky soft and blue. And as he walked to the bus stop, he didn't look at the ground anymore. He looked forward, like his grandfather once did, like his mother always did, like all the voices before him, and all the ones yet to speak.